Say what you will about pop music, but when a song is so catchy it becomes an earworm, it's hard to deny the popularity that some songs enjoy. The Netflix documentary Wham brings the story of the musical duo that brought us such hits as Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Freedom, and Last Christmas. In 1982, the best friends and still teenagers, George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley, as Wham set out to conquer the world. By June of 1986, they played their very last gig at Wembley Stadium, having done exactly that. Now, for the very first time, told in their own words, the amazing story of how in 4 years they dominated the charts around the world with timeless and classic pop songs. This documentary is presented in almost a Ken Burns style of storytelling, where we listen to archival interviews with George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley as imagery and video play underneath. And the way this is presented, it's captivating, mainly because we're actually being told the history by the duo that actually lived it. And it's not all conjecture and third-party accounts. Now, both of the men have excellent narrator voices, and because they're telling their own story, all the emotion that's captured is genuine and believable. Now, admittedly, I'm not a massive Wham fan, but I know a lot of their songs, even though I wasn't obsessed with them or really even followed them when they were emerging and then exploding into the music scene. It's because of that I really enjoyed getting the full backstory on how the duo met, what growing up together was like, and how they garnered not only a friendship that lasted decades, but also pooled their talent to create some catchy music that spoke to and inspired the youth of their time. And with the narration, it doesn't feel like the two are having an actual conversation with each other when they're present in the same room at the same time. Instead, it feels as though they're both recording separately, but using question prompts given to them by a director or producer so that they can answer without the influence of the other. Now, surprisingly, the dialogue fits well together and it tells a cohesive story, taking us along on their journey. And then that's all visually supported by the massive collection of photos that Andrew's mom had collected. And so this feels like just a massive trip down memory lane, where friends are looking through scrapbooks and reliving the moments that were captured in those photos. And I really enjoyed hearing about George and Andrew's relationship when George came out to Andrew. The support and the friendship, it's great, but there's also some sadness and maybe regret that we hear in both George and Andrew's voices as they talk about some of the decisions that were made immediately following George's coming out. We also hear how those decisions, they affect George moving forward, what it does to his personality, his psyche, even his identity. And as the timeline moves along, there's a slight shift in the emotional tone of Andrew's narration. He's recounting the times when George begins to take over the songwriting duties, and then is becoming the more prominent member of the group. I mean, he's even being asked to perform on huge projects, but Andrew isn't. And while there's always the supportive best friend mentality that comes from Andrew, there's also the small twinges of hurt or maybe disappointment that's present in his voice. And we kind of witness the drifting apart of not only an increasingly popular band, but also friends. And that's something I think the documentary certainly lacks in the content. We get all the info on the group and their meteoric rise to fame, as well as the ending of the group and George Michael going on as a solo artist, but we don't get insight into the feelings and emotions of either of them after that. And I know, this documentary is just about Wham, but Andrew and George were Wham, so I wanted a lot more information on their relationship after they called it quits as a musical duo. We get a title slide at the end that says something about Andrew always being proud and supportive of George in his solo career, but did they remain close friends? Was there a rift? And if so, did it ever get patched? How did George feel about the split? Did he regret any of it? There are a ton of questions that can be raised following the end of the band that would make this a much more satisfying watch. But what we do get is still entertaining and it's informative. Now, if you're a fan of the group, there's a lot of their music that's showcased and highlighted, which I loved. And I was especially glad that they played a clip of George Michael singing his duet with Elton John on Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. But we're given some clips and even nearly full songs at times throughout all of this. And while the documentary may not include all of the depth and the information that I was hoping for, especially concerning the friends after the band concluded, this is filled with sweet emotion, including laughter and tears as the two recount their time together, both growing as friends and then becoming the world-renowned pop stars that they were. We get a lot of insights into their start, how they approached the music industry, how they were somewhat taken advantage of, but then secured a new contract that then helped them skyrocket in popularity, and the mindsets they tried to maintain as they matured both as a band and also individuals. And there's a lot of smiles to be had while watching, but also some melancholy at points, and even many heartfelt moments that really showcase a truly loving friendship. And even if you're not a fan of Wham, but you enjoy stories of people, this is an engaging and entertaining watch. It's only 92 minutes, so it is a quick watch. My guess is that it's going to have you tapping your feet along with the music, and then you might find yourself singing the songs all throughout the day because they just get into your brain and they won't leave. This is produced really well, matching interesting visuals with touching emotions, and even though the documentary could have gone a lot deeper into the duo, what we still get is a great glimpse into life of one of the most popular pop groups of the early 80s. There's no sex, tiny bit of nudity, a lot of profanity, and no violence. Now, as a reminder, I don't give couch ratings to documentaries, but I highly recommend checking out Wham on Netflix. So do you have a favorite song of theirs? Let me know what it is in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.